But I remember, for some reason or other, being very excited when Fidel Castro made the revolution in Cuba. I was a kid and I remember reading that. And it was just seemed right and appropriate that poor people were rising up against rather ugly rich people.
It's the same thing, they never learn. You may recall way back in, 1961, they invaded Cuba. And everybody was totally convinced that Castro was the worst guy in the world, that all the Cuban people were going to rise up in rebellion against Fidel Castro. They forgot that he educated their kids, gave them health care, totally transformed the society. Not to say that Fidel Castro or Cuba are perfect, they are certainly not. But just because Ronald Reagan dislikes these people does not mean to say that the people in their own nations feel the same way.
I think in that same interview, he praised what he called the revolution of values in Cuba and talked about how people were working for the common good, not for themselves. I just couldn't disagree more. If the values are that you oppress people, you disappear people, you imprison people, even kill people for expressing their opinions, for expressing freedom of speech, that is not the kind of revolution of values that I ever want to see anywhere.
I want to go back to your comments, please. We'll get to Donald Trump in a
Castro, and Cuba, no, of course, their economy is terrible. You're right, it is a dictatorship. They did have a good do have a decent healthcare system and a decent educational system. A lot of people have left Cuba for better dreams to fulfill their aspirations. So no, the Cuban economy is a disaster. No, I do not praise Fidel Castro.
We come from Cuba, but we know what socialism and Marxist socialism can do to a country. When I left Cuba in 1961, Cuba had the second highest per capita income in the Americas, and it had the second highest literacy rate in the Americas. Today, Cuba is second from the bottom. Only Haiti is below Cuba in per capita income. And so that gives you an idea how socialism can come in and destroy a capitalistic society and take it from very high level and bring it down. So now everybody in Cuba is at the same level, yeah. So there's no such thing as class separation, but everybody is at the poorest level you can find. Socialism is really sort of like a middle point between capitalism and communism. And so the communists knew many years ago that in order to go from a capitalist society to a communist society, you had to have the people in the capitalist country accept the concept of distribution of wealth. And the distribution of wealth would then, if you could get that thought into the minds of the people, especially working with young people, because it sounds good, right? We're going to distribute the wealth. If you can get them to accept that, then which is socialism, it's a much easier step to then go to communism from there. It's very difficult to go from capitalism directly to communism. So socialism is that midpoint that's strategically set up really by the Marxist communists.
Socialism is not just for justice. It's accumulation of your property. And once they take control of what you do, what you can do, they're taking away a fundamental part of a person.